Coming up on The World Today. World Health Assembly agrees to independent investigation into the response to the global coronavirus pandemic. Palau calls for Taiwan to join WHO COVID-19 forum. Plus, Britain defends its handling of the coronavirus outbreak in care homes. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shoboale. Member states in the World Health Organization have agreed to set an independent inquiry into the global response to the coronavirus pandemic. The resolution, approved without objection by the WHO's 194-member annual assembly meeting virtually in Geneva, also allows for the inquiry to look into the health body's own role. The United States in particular has been highly critical of its response. The EU presented the resolution on behalf of 100 nations. While China-US relations continue to worsen as the Chinese Foreign Ministry is accusing the Trump administration of attacking the World Health Organization as a means of diverting attention from its own handling of the coronavirus pandemic. This comes as the US president accuses the WHO of showing an alarming lack of independence from China. The global death toll from the disease has surpassed 318,000, with the number of cases going beyond 4.2 million. However, more than 1.7 million people have recovered so far.
U.S. President Donald Trump has sent a letter to the head of the World Health Organization, WHO, threatening to pull U.S. funding permanently over COVID-19. The letter outlines a 30-day deadline for the body to commit to substantive improvement or risk losing millions and U.S. membership altogether. Addressed to WHO Chief Tedros Ghebreyesus, it criticizes stages of the body's response since December. Meanwhile, the president made a surprise announcement saying he is taking hydroxychloroquine to ward off coronavirus, despite public health officials warning it may be unsafe.
No, I think for whatever it's worth, I take it. I would have told you that 3-4 days ago, but we never had a chance because you never asked me the question.
Did the White House doctor recommend that you take that? Is that why you're taking it?
Yeah, White House doctor. I didn't recommend. No, I asked him, what do you think? He said, well, if you'd like it. I said, yeah, I'd like it. I'd like to take it. A lot of people are taking it. A lot of frontline workers are taking hydroxychloroquine. A lot of I don't take it because, hey, people said, oh, maybe he owns the company. No, I don't own the company. You know what? I want the people of this nation to feel good. I don't want them being sick. And there's a very good chance that this has an impact, especially early on.
Brazil's hospitals are nearing capacity as the Latin American nation becomes ground zero as its cases surpass those of Italy and Spain. On Saturday, May the 16th, Brazil's health ministry registered 14,919 new confirmed cases in the prior 24 hours. With some 246,000 cases now reported as of Monday, it is now on track to surpass the United Kingdom. The global distinction is likely to pile pressure on President Jair Bolsonaro, who has been fiercely critical of the orders by many of Brazil's state governors for strict social isolation and quarantine to combat the spread of the virus, including the closure of schools, shops, and restaurants.
Well, as mentioned a bit there, U.S. President Donald Trump has said he is taking hydroxychloroquine to ward off coronavirus, despite public health officials warning it may be unsafe. The 73-year-old president was hosting a meeting devoted to the struggling restaurant industry on Monday when he caught reporters unaware by revealing he was taking the drug. Currently, there is no convincing evidence that hydroxychloroquine helps fight the virus, and it can cause unpleasant and harmful side effects in some people. Experts agree that this work is worth doing, but they are concerned about advocating more general use of these experimental treatments before the proof is in, and also using it could endanger lives and deprive patients from chronic autoimmune conditions of their much-needed medication. The UK government has been stockpiling some medicines that might be useful against coronavirus. That includes the drugs. Clinical trials are underway in the UK and the United States to assess the drug's worth. The human guinea pigs taking part include frontline health workers at high risk of exposure to the virus, as well as patients. The VOA senior White House correspondent, Patsy Widakuswara, joins us now to take a look at this a bit more. Patsy, what do Americans make of President Donald Trump's announcement about taking chloroquine every day to, as a preventive measure against the coronavirus?
Well, it really depends on which Americans you're asking. Those who do not support President Trump say that this is really just an irresponsible and reckless announcement by the president, particularly in promoting a drug that has not been proven scientifically to be effective nor safe against COVID-19. Those are the people who are against President Trump, but those who support him say that this is great. We believe the president, and in fact, some are even calling for the president, asking the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, to make this medicine available for a wider population, perhaps over the counter. So it really just depends on which American you're talking about, as in anything that relates to President Trump.
For now, the use of this drug had been disapproved by the FDA, but some who had, like before, gone with the president on taking chloroquine after he touted it as a preventive drug may think President Trump has been talking about this for a while now. Why can't? Is this worrying for health officials?
Right. So in April, the Food and Drug Administration, this is the top government's agency that essentially tells American whether or not a certain drug or a certain food is safe to consume. In April, they said that hydroxychloroquine, while it is widely used and have been used for a long time for malaria and lupus, is not proven effective or safe against COVID-19, whether as a cure, as a treatment, or as a prevention, because there's just simply not enough data to support this notion. And so they are saying, the FDA is saying that hydroxychloroquine should only be used in a hospital or clinical trial setting. It should not be used by the wider population. It should only be used upon a doctor's recommendation. And as we heard before in the Trump statement, is that he asked his doctor whether or not he can take this, and the doctor said that he can take it. And when asked why is he taking it, the president seems to be referring to some anecdotal evidence that a lot of people are telling him, frontline workers, healthcare workers are telling him that this is effective. But again, I must stress that this is anecdotal evidence. Most of the health experts that I speak to say that there's simply not enough evidence that suggests hydroxychloroquine is safe or effective against COVID-19.
Well, let's take a look at what's going on with the President Trump and the WHO now. You know, the president has given the WHO a 30-day ultimatum, else the U.S. will cut funding from the body. What could happen if the U.S. president goes ahead with this decision? And what can the WHO do then? And can the president actually do this at this point?
Right. So the president is threatening to pull all funding permanently for the WHO after last month threatening that he's going to suspend it. So the president gives the WHO 30 days to make sufficient and major improvements. I've asked the White House, what do they mean by major improvements? What are the criteria? And who, in fact, from the US government, which agency will be looking at or will be reviewing this to ensure that the WHO has met those criteria. So far, the White House has not responded to my questions. And whether or not Trump can actually do this, of course, depends on the other branch of government in the United States, that is the Congress. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has said that she does not want this to happen. This is not a good idea. And there may be some challenges coming from there. So it's still very unclear what exactly can President Trump do beyond making threats, beyond giving pressures to WHO to look into its own procedures and see whether or not they can be made more accountable and more transparent.
All right, then, VOA Senior White House Correspondent Patsy Widakuswara, thank you so much for joining us on The World Today. Moving on now to the UK, Britain is defending its handling of the coronavirus outbreak in care homes, saying the government had put a protective ring around them and that 62% of homes had reported no COVID-19 cases. Health Secretary Matt Hancock said the number of deaths in care homes had fallen in the past week of reported data. He adds that 27% of COVID-19 deaths in England had taken place in care homes compared to a European average of around half.
Mr. Speaker, our elderly care homes provide for people towards the end of their life. They do an amazing job and they deserve the praise that they've received from the public during this crisis. Residents are looked after when they need care the most. Their hands are held, their brows are mopped, and they are made comfortable. As a collective result of our efforts, especially of care colleagues across the country, 62% of care homes have had no reported cases of coronavirus. And today's figures, released by the Office for National Statistics, show that the number of deaths in care homes has fallen significantly, down by a third in just the last week, from 2,423 to 1,666. Now, for anyone who has a loved one living in a care home, and all those residents and staff, I understand what a worrying time this has been. And I'm glad we've been able to protect the majority of homes, and we'll keep working to strengthen the protective ring that we've cast around all our care homes. As I said in the House yesterday, last week we set out a further $600 million to strengthen infection control, and this comes on top of a substantial programme of support.
Meanwhile, the UK's COVID-19 official death toll has reached nearly 43,000, underlying the country's status as the worst hit in Europe and raising more questions about Prime Minister Boris Johnson's handling of the crisis. New official figures for England and Wales brought the death toll to at least 42,990. This includes previously published data from Scotland and Northern Ireland. That's all the data collated, as well as recent hospital deaths in England. The economy has also suffered a heavy hit from almost 2 months of coronavirus lockdown. The number of people claiming unemployment benefits in Britain leapt in April to its highest level in nearly 24 years, given the clearest sign yet of the hit from the coronavirus to jobs, which is set to deepen in the coming months. Well, the health minister of Palau is calling on the World Health Organization to allow Taiwan to participate in the World Health Assembly as an observer. MI's Robert, speaking to the WHO from Koro on a video call, was seen tearing up as he said Taiwan authorities were the first to help his country to face the potential spread of the virus. Self-ruled Taiwan has been lobbying to attend as an observer the May 18 to 19 meeting of the WHO's decision-making body, the World Health Assembly, and has won high-level support from the United States and several U.S. allies, including Japan. The Chinese envoy to the World Health Organization on Tuesday denounced support shown by the United States and other members to Taiwan during its annual assembly. China's foreign ministry said last week that Taiwan's ruling Democratic Progressive Party refused to do this, so the political foundation for Taiwan's WHO participation had ceased to exist.
Earlier this year, when the WHO declared a public health emergency of international concern for this COVID-19, my country felt a grave apprehension as we were not at all prepared to face the devastation of this virus. We did not have the capacity or the infrastructure to respond in the likelihood of the COVID-19 reaching our borders. Taiwan was the first country to lend Palau a helping hand. followed by many other countries who are present at this assembly. Taiwan and many of our allies knew that our country was vulnerable, so they made tremendous sacrifices to give Palau all the equipment, supplies, and training that it needed in its efforts to prepare and to protect its people. I'm happy to report that my country now has sufficient testing capabilities for COVID-19 and all the necessary supplies and infrastructure to manage the spread of the virus in the event of our first infection.
Still to come on the program. Let's talk about a tearful reunion. Imagine meeting your parents after 32 years, or your parent meeting you after 32 years since you went missing. Get the picture. Bring the details in a moment. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Mexico has issued guidelines for restarting operations in the automotive, mining and construction sectors, pushing ahead with reopening the economy despite a growing national toll from the COVID-19 pandemic and concerns about unsafe work sites. With Mexico's coronavirus death toll having surged past 5,300 and over 51,000 known cases, officials are wrestling with how to restart key industries without triggering a greater spread of the virus. The guidelines require companies to submit to authorities health protocols for exiting the coronavirus lockdown. Firms will then be told within 72 hours if they can resume operations. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador said companies would have to answer an extensive questionnaire as part of efforts to protect workers. Now, more and more people are showing up for nucleic acid testing in the epicenter of China's coronavirus outbreak, Wuhan. Testing is underway for the city's 11 million residents as China reported 6 confirmed coronavirus cases for May 18th, including a new case in Wuhan, a patient who was previously asymptomatic. Health authorities say the Wuhan campaign is meant to identify virus carriers who exhibit no outward signs of illness but are still capable of infecting others. Since the end of the city's lockdown on April 8th, activities in public transportation have gradually resumed, but some small businesses say they are still struggling. Well, away from the COVID-19 pandemic, very briefly, the Prime Minister of Lesotho has formally resigned following a scandal in which he was accused of involvement in the killing of his estranged wife. Thomas Thabane told a national television audience that although he had not completed his work, he was retiring from what he described as the great theatre of action. He had for months refused to step down. Mr. Thabane and his wife, Lipolelo, were embroiled in a bitter divorce when she was shot dead outside her home. His current wife has been charged with murdering his ex-wife. The couple deny any wrongdoing. Well, elsewhere in Africa, South Sudan's Vice President Riek Machar has tested positive for the coronavirus. He said he had no symptoms but would self-isolate for 14 days. His wife, Defense Minister Angelina Teny, some bodyguards and other staff have also tested positive. Mr. Machar was tested after one of the members of the government task force leading the fight against the virus tested positive. The Vice President was until last week a member of that task force. South Sudan has recorded 282 cases of the virus, while 4 people have died. Now, away from Africa, Qatar has confirmed 12 cases of the coronavirus in a prison, but it has denied suggestions of a more serious outbreak. The government said 2 prisoners were seriously ill, but none had died at Doha's central prison. In a report, Human Rights Watch said 6 detainees had described a worsening in prison conditions in what it called an apparent COVID-19 outbreak. But the government said the report was based on unfounded rumors and speculation from a small number of unverified interviews. India and Bangladesh are evacuating millions of people from coastal areas ahead of a super cyclone which is approaching from the Bay of Bengal. Cyclone Amphan is expected to make landfall in an area near the border of the 2 countries later on Wednesday. More than 20 relief teams have already been deployed and several more are on standby. That's according to Indian officials. The coronavirus outbreak is making it harder for officials in both countries to evacuate people in these regions. Forecasters say Amphan is expected to hit the coast with winds gusting up to 185 kilometers per hour. Officials in Bangladesh fear it will be the most powerful storm since Cyclone Sidar killed about 3,500 people in 2007. Most died as a result of seawater surging in. Now, what you see there is a Chinese couple whose son was abducted in a hotel in 1988, being reunited with their son after 32 years. Mao Yin was snatched at the age of 2 while his father stopped to get some water on their way home from nursery. His parents searched the country for him and his mother distributed more than 100,000 flyers. The family were reunited at a police news conference on Monday, and the son, now aged 34, said he planned to spend time with his parents. This goes to show that you should never, ever lose hope. Now, for many couples, the coronavirus pandemic has disrupted and postponed wedding plans. But for one pair in Australia, it has instead sped up their plans to tie the knot. Peter Andrews and Hoang Nguyen were married in their living room in Western Sydney after initially meeting online. The couple had been together for 7 months and were planning to get married after Hoang returned from a trip to her home country of Vietnam. But Hoang never got a chance to leave Australia as the country shut its borders due to the coronavirus pandemic before her flight, hastening their marriage plans.
It's speeded it up and actually it's helped in a way for us, because otherwise she would have gone back and then, you know, we would probably wait for her to come over again before we get married. So.
He shouted out onto the Facebook that he needs some witnesses. So we were the first one to put our hands up and he said, yay. And I'm glad we did.
Congratulations to them. And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shuboali. Bye for now.